and salutations.
Hey!
Greetings and salutations. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Live with Lamar. You guys just tuned in another amazing day. I've been feeling amazing and of course feeling my best I possibly can. So I'm of course here to share the word with you guys. I hope that everything has been amazing. I hope that you guys have continued to make efforts to lighten the load and of course to make a difference on yourself, because of course that's all we have when it's all said and done is ourselves. A lot of the time we're looking for some sort of fulfillment from outside of ourselves, but that's not ever going to be the case because it doesn't work in that regard. But anyway, yeah, so it's just that a lot of the time we look for situations, we look for fulfillment, we look for satisfaction outside of ourselves, and it all starts with you, the person. And we have no idea how much pressure and how much weight we carry with just doing that, as well as judging and analyzing situations that we don't necessarily agree with or that don't necessarily make us feel our best. I realized I had a conversation with someone, and it was kind of those conversations you have with someone, and it's kind of like they're reminding you of some things that you don't necessarily want to hear, and it reminds you of the phrase, the truth hurts. And when we hear things that give us some sort of emotion or make us feel some kind of way emotionally, chances are it must have hit a nerve, and that's because we are related to that particular topic. But someone had said to me, when I feel wronged, me personally, when I feel wronged, I tend to withdraw or compartmentalize a person or the situation and sort of do away with it and not deal with it as a defense mechanism of some sort. And initially I'm just like, I don't know, my ego and my pride is like, no, that's not true. But when you actually think about it, it's kind of the reality of things. When things don't go my way, and I'm sure there are people who can relate, when things don't go my way, or when there's a situation that I don't agree with, or when I feel wronged in any way, which that's different for every person. When I feel that in that regard, I just sort of tend to either react in a way that is confrontational or confronting a person, or I tend to sort of withdraw and sort of retreat into a shell of some sort. And all of that can be avoided in general. I think it all starts with the mind. I think that we sort of overlook a lot of things because we think that, that doesn't work for me, that type of, spirituality, mumbo jumbo, sort of all of that doesn't work for me. I'm not one of those kind of people, all of those kind of things. But really, it all starts with a choice, and it all starts with the realization that, it's we put on the situation more than it actually has to be. And, it's a lot of the time what we think about the situation has more weight than the actual situation that's presenting itself to us. And outside of what we think of a situation, if we were to just sort of surrender to it and allow it to be, as I spoke about in my last upload, just surrendering and allowing it to be what it is, that is where love and sort of learning can begin to happen, because you are not judging the situation in front of you based on what you've already been through, your past, because that's all we can ever do is judge new situations off our past, because that's what our brain and our ego does. So we're allowing ourselves the free room in this situation to learn, and we're giving ourselves a chance to love ourselves in that moment. Basically, we're saying we appreciate this moment for what it is. We're not going to bring in our old past selves into this new situation, because we'll keep getting the same situation. And of course, the definition of insanity is doing the same exact thing and expecting a different response. So of course we wouldn't want that. I don't want that for myself, and I wouldn't want that for anyone of you, of course. And it makes me think about the saying, don't let your emotions overshadow your intelligence. And that's so important. I think that a lot of the time, like I said, our emotions are there to teach us, not to consume us. And I think that a lot of the time, when we're angry, we're upset, that's all it is. I'm angry, I'm mad, I don't want to hear nothing, I can't even think straight at this moment because I'm so mad. And, I've been around people, particularly my like people closer to me, and we've been in situations, and like I've literally heard people say, "I'm so mad. Oh my gosh, I'm mad." And oh my gosh, and they're going over and over again and again. I'm mad, going over a situation over again, and it's just that analytical process that we put ourselves through that is sort of adding more weight. And the name of the game is losing weight. It's all an effort to get lighter. We want to transcend into the sun. We want to get so light that things just sort of fall off. We sort of like are almost practically skipping, almost practically floating as we walk because we're so light. We're not moved by most circumstances. I always say we have never arrived fully. We're always arriving. It's always we never really plateau at any point. I think that sometimes we have the impression that people get to a point and they just got it. Oh my gosh, you look at them and we compare what they have to what we have. Another mental defect, the comparing thing that we do, and in the world of materialism, it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to get consumed in the idea of who has more, who has less, who has better, who has worse, who has something that's shinier, who has something that's the latest version of things, when in actuality these things are not going to fulfill us in any way more than the next. So it's just keeping all that in mind. It reminds me because today I had a very interesting conversation with a lady who had got breast implants. She said this time 20 years ago. And so 2 years ago, she was having some liver failure issues and didn't know where they were coming from. She's going to the doctors. They don't know. Of course, that's not news to me. Of course, they don't know what's going on. But yeah, she said they didn't know what was going on. She had liver issues. She's suffering all these, ailments. She didn't know what to do. And she said she didn't know what it was. And I quote, "I don't know what it was, but maybe it was God or something like that," she had said, and told her maybe it was her breast. And sure enough, she went to the hospital and she looked into it. Long story short, it didn't get shorter. I just sort of said that to make it like it was, but it's still the same amount of story. Anyway, she said that she went and told them that maybe it was the breast. They looked into it. Lo and behold, it was. They removed the breast. She then lost 15 pounds of inflammation. 15 pounds of inflammation. Like, this lady was carrying 15 pounds of inflammation and the doctor could not tell her why. And before I lose track of what I'm saying, because that happens. So first I want to say, as far as doctors are concerned, I myself am not someone who regularly goes to doctors. I believe that it starts with you and what you consume mentally, physically, and spiritually. I think that it has a lot to do with what we eat, and I think that there are holistic healing options for any and everything. And also, keeping that in mind, we want to, of course, I'm not being an extremist. If I break my arm, I'm going to go to the doctor, obviously, because they know best to help in that regard. But getting back to the subject, she had gone through all of these things, with, of course, she getting the breast, of comparing herself to, I don't know, Heidi Klum or whomever she idolized at that moment. She said that she got them initially because she wanted to look better, she wanted to feel better, and it's you wanted to feel better based on what's around you, you wanted to feel better based on the ideas that are being presented to you. And she said, it wasn't until she got rid of her breast that she realized that she didn't actually have to do any of that. She didn't have to go get the breast. She was saying that it's a shame that it's taking her through all of these situations to realize that she didn't need any of that. And I was just there, of course, to be the light to remind her, there's no set amount of time that we have to, there's no race. This isn't a race as far as life lessons are concerned. It's not about how fast you get there or when you get there, just as long as you get there and as long as you enjoy the journey that you take in getting there, of course. And she's like, "You're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, ma'am, you seem to me to be radiating joy, and look like you're feeling really good. And she's like, yeah, I do feel great. And I was like, yeah, and that's all it starts with is you. She's like, yeah, I realize that now, and I'm thankful that we've had this conversation. And I'm like, ma'am, no, thank you for sharing your testimony with me, because it's just those kind of things that make a difference. Hearing someone else's testimony, hearing how someone else has benefited from understanding a lifelong lesson, a challenge in their life, and how they overcome that in some way, as opposed to being suppressed by it, as opposed to being, you know, thinking about all the reasons why they can't do it. You know, I talk to a lot of people right now who I ask them, hey, why haven't you made that next step towards your mission or your journey? Well, you know, there's this, there's that, there's this, and they're counting all the reasons. They're counting all the negatives, trying to think about why they can't do something. You're telling me, like, for instance, funny story, we were talking about relationships, and this girl's telling me why she does not have a man, and she's like, telling me all the reasons why she doesn't have a man, and she's basing it off of all the reasons why, all the bad things that happen in relationships. It's like, how do you expect to find a good man based on bad circumstances? It's like, you know, how do you expect to get good if you are living like things are bad? It's like, you know, I was also went as far as to say, you know, it starts with looking approachable. How do you expect to attract a man or a relationship if you yourself are standing looking grouchy, looking mean? How are you expecting to bring in anything and bring a relationship in if you look like you don't want anything to do with a man or anything to do with a relationship? So it's just those kind of things that make a difference. You know, we want all of these things. We're asking for, you know, all of this fulfillment, all of this joy, all of these things from, you know, the universe. But what are we putting out? What are we putting out? How are we being received? How are we going about making these things happen? And those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. We don't want to be consumed by our emotions. We want to be people who are able to recognize the hurt in people and want to heal it as opposed to attack it. We want to recognize the warmth in someone and sort of bask in that and be able to compliment someone in that regard, because, you know, when we compliment people on things that they have in themselves, it strengthens that in us. And when we complain and criticize something in a person, it's doing that same thing to ourselves. So we don't want that, of course, because, like I said, this is all about getting lighter, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And just keeping that in mind, moving forward, putting your best foot forward, and, like, making an impression, being the good, being the light that you want to see. Simple things like I say to people whom I have short interactions with, just taking it one day at a time, you know, and it's just that simple phrase that's like, yeah, you're right. You know, it doesn't have to be this, oh my gosh, what's happening next month? What's happening next year? What's happening tomorrow? Just focus on right now. You know, thinking about what happened yesterday is gonna make you depressed, because if you compare what you looked like yesterday to today, maybe it's different, maybe you don't like it, but comparing them is not gonna help you. Thinking about what was is not gonna help you with what is. So it's just important to keep all of those things in mind. And it's interesting because even with this YouTube channel, I have been struggling with, you know, do I make this like this whole no card thing, and do I make this whole superficial sort of like talk show, my name is Lamar sort of thing, and I give you guys this sort of robotic sort of thing. And no, I want this to be as candid as possible, hence why I don't have any no cards, hence why all of this is sort of free flowing, and I've sort of just been basically freestyling everything other than the poetry that I write. Speaking of which, I think today's poem is the best one that I've written thus far. I've not been as moved as I am and as excited to share with you guys my work, and I hope that it resonates well with you guys, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. This poem is about, of course, today's topic, and bringing that all full circle. Let's think about the power of influence. Not talking about the ones we get from TV, not even from the radio. I'm talking about the ones we put on ourselves. So I want to talk condoms, unprotected sex, and the STDs of the brain. We'll call it a class on mental health. Trying to decongest Think about materialism being the mucus and it's blocking my likeliness of achieving holistic health, all while striving to exceed expectations in wealth, but all with the intentions to make the best of the cards I was dealt, will be the true testament to what we call stealth. He's a slut, he's a hoe, he's a freak, got a different girl every day of the week. Hold on. I'd like to think that when I'm relatable and aggressive, you'll listen to what I say, but in actuality, it's all about the story in which I tell myself when a day has indeed been a day. Be that as it may, bear with me open-heartedly as I try to convey and expose all my truths and the mental games that we play. We pray and we pray for the answers outside of ourselves to remedy the dismay, especially when we feel burnt and butted like what's left in the ashtray. But all this time, I've been the cause, and it's a shame that it had to be this way. Happy or sad, races are impartial, rich or broke, lazy and competent. He uses folks, and this one's full of impractical jokes. My throat and chest are getting tight. I don't want to choke from all the labeling and judging that I'm doing that's suffocating my stroke. What I see in you is in me, so take note. In the meantime, I'll continue to poke at my inner self. Never mind how I stroke or what kind of bags I tote, or ideas of never getting rich or staying broke, or even whose spirit I couldn't invoke. So make a choice, presence or chatter. Judge the people who out here sleep or live through love. Because when you encourage people, you encourage yourself. So stay woke. Whoa. So still working on the flow. You already know. This is my show. It's Live with Lamar. Kicking through the dough. No, I'm kidding. But I'm still trying to find the flow. I'm still trying to get it to stick. I look forward to sharing more with you guys and basking in amazingness and light and love. And until next time, stay great, stay gracious and kind, live through love and presence. God is love, love is presence. And you've been Live with Lamar. Greetings, salutations. Wait, do you say greetings or do you say salutations? Both. Greetings, salutations. You've been Live with Lamar.